So, everyone, welcome to episode 2 of my Avon story. First one with Adam Porter for a nice little chat with him. Now we've got the main man himself, Dan Bethell, joins us, ladies and gentlemen. there would usually be like, I'd try my own tapping effects maybe, but if not, Dan, thank you very much for coming to talk to me, mate. Really
appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
First of all, mate, how are you? I mean, it's lockdown's a little bit different for you. Like, how's lockdown affecting you personally? I know you're still training, but
yeah, so we've been lucky enough to be training the last 8 months, I want to say. So the UK government in June said that elite sport can continue. Obviously, you've got like the Premier League, and that enabled us to go back into training. So for me, it's been quite nice to be able to get on court every day. I know that a lot of people, especially in Avon, following Facebook, have been missing me on court, so I feel very lucky to be able to do that. Unfortunately, we've had no tournaments in the last year. That's sort of the big change. So, sort of got into the routine of spending a lot of time in airports and going through check-in hotels, which has sadly stopped recently. But hopefully that will get back in the not too distant future.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. We all hope, don't we? But I was just like want to start off with, like I probably will with every interview. It's just interesting to know how you originally got into badminton. What was maybe your first memories of it, and what really prompted you to start enjoying it and think you could take it further?
Yeah, well, I started badminton back in 2009. And it all stemmed from, I watched the Beijing Paralympic Games in 2008. And that was the first sort of memory I have of power sport and seeing people like me and with other disabilities playing sport. I'd never really known anything about power sport. I'd just always played with anybody. But I saw this on TV and I was like, wow, that looks really cool. I'd love to sort of give that a go. Not necessarily thinking I was going to get to the Paralympics ever. I mean, that was obviously a dream, and it's sort of always been a dream since then, and it's slowly starting to hopefully materialise. But at the time, it was just sort of getting involved in power sport, meeting other people like me, and I could learn some things not just about sport, just about life with a disability, having people with that in common. I thought it'd be quite nice. I looked first at tennis because I was a big tennis player growing up in the junior years. So
who was your favourite player?
Federer, all day. It is.
That's easy. Move on. If you said something that would have been controversial.
I've liked Murray recently, but people say I look like him, which I can't quite see. But apparently, I'm not sure whether it's a compliment or not. But
I can see it. I can. Now you've said that, I'm not going to be able to get that out of my head. But
yeah,
sorry to all the badminton listeners. Let's focus on that.
Yeah. So I was a big tennis player. Looked at power tennis. That was my first port of call because I thought I'm a tennis player, I might as well get involved in power tennis. But unfortunately, there was no category for my disability. They've only got wheelchair tennis. Limited. So then I thought that's disappointing, but I was still really keen on getting involved in power sport. And I played a bit of badminton in school. That's sort of where I had exposure to it, but I'd never really taken it seriously. And it was just a simple Google search. I looked up power badminton, and it just happened to come up with a result, and there was a tournament I think it was in June 2010 in Manchester, and I was about 8 months out, so I thought, okay, that'd be quite cool to just enter.
So how old are you at this point? Sorry.
So I was 14 at this point. So I thought I'll go along and see what happens. I've trained a bit, did a bit of training, found a local club in Corsham with Steve Holbert, started doing a bit of training. Wasn't great. I thought I was better than I actually was. I turned up to this tournament and I thought never seen like people in wheelchairs really before, dwarfs, amputees. So it was all quite a bit overwhelming. And I always remember my first match. I played a guy called Will, who's still a good friend of mine and a good player. And he's an above knee amputee. And he came on with his prosthetic. I've never played anyone with a prosthetic leg before. I didn't really know what to think, and then played the first few points, and I went 5-1 up. And I was like, I'm actually better at this than I thought. I thought it was going to be easy, and I'll just walk it. And then I went on to lose that match 21-7, 21-3, I think it was. Like that. Lost all my other matches.
We've all been there.
Sure. Yeah, and then I sort of got a wake-up call that I've got sort of a lot of work to do, and sort of had to get sort of stuck in. But I sort of kept around doing it because yes, I got really destroyed on court, but I loved the social element of the sport, which is obviously a big thing in Avon and everywhere. That really sort of attracted me to it, and I got to know some great people. So that sort of kept me in it. And at that stage, after not winning a match for, I think, about a year and a half, I did win my first match. So I thought any dream of the Paralympics or just playing any international, that was way off in the future, probably just a pipe dream, like those dreamers, those failed journeymen. But then slowly I started to get a bit better, started winning a few more matches, and sort of just progressed from there.
And what, like you say, like you started getting better, you started training. Was that still with the session with Steve, or was that?
Yeah, so it was with Steve, and then I moved over in about 2012 to Bath University with Pete Bush. So I was still playing tennis at this stage, and my tennis coach, I played tennis at Bath Uni, and my tennis coach knew Pete, and they had sort of like conversations.
Everyone knows Pete, though, don't they?
Everyone knows Pete. You walk in there, he's just the man in Bath Uni. Like if you just mention his name, you can get into any part of the building. And so he just Pete then just came over to the tennis and started watching me, and then got talking to parents and my tennis coach, and then I went along to one of his sessions and sort of got into the future squad on a Wednesday night from there. And I did that from when I was about 15 all the way up to when I went off to uni.
How did the futures sessions in particular, those sessions help develop your game? Because I mean, obviously for me personally, lots of Avon players, they went and technically Pete brought them on like leaps and bounds. So like in your experience, how did it bring you further?
Yeah, I think it was sort of a similar thing. Like it really sort of improved my technique. I always remember, because we had Pete, and then we had obviously Sam Dobson was a coach there, sort of an assistant coach, and I was doing some backhand. It might have been backhand defence, and I always remember Sam saying, "Why don't you use a backhand grip?" And I remember my response was, "What's a backhand grip?" Like that, which was crazy now, that I just never did. And then so he really, I felt my technique and just general knowledge of the game really started to improve. And it was not for long after I joined Pete that I won my first Four Nations title. It was only about 6 to 8 months after, and then I sort of progressed through there. And I always said to myself that I wouldn't enter any internationals until I could start winning at nationals, and that was the advice they gave me, because there would just be no point, because the standard is another level. So I was sort of at that stage, and then when in 2013, when I was 17, I entered the World Championships in Dortmund in Germany, and that was sort of my first introduction to international badminton, and that was
that a senior level tournament? Sorry, or was that
was a senior level tournament? So my first international was the senior World Championship.
How was that?
Really jumped in. It was good. Like I won a few matches, got through my group. And so I was very happy with that.
Yeah.
Played at that stage, I was playing all 3 events. I was playing singles, doubles, and mixed. I always remember in mixed. I played with this Danish girl called Julie, and I'd never met her before. I literally it was at the tournament. It was just like, "Do you want to play mixed doubles?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, why not? I've come all this way. I might as well play as much as I can." And I remember on court, I'd never played mixed before in my life. And we played the world champions, and yeah, it was sort of a disaster, sort of a match that we don't sort of speak about anymore.
It's one of those that you hide in the back of your memory, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because Rich Morris, the head coach of Paralympics GB, who's my coach here, he often talk about that match and just how he couldn't really do anything as a coach, because I literally had no idea where I was, what I was doing. I think at that stage as well, I was still like wearing tennis shoes. Like I was still quite new to badminton. I was wearing like my old case with really thick outdoor tennis shoes to play badminton. I sort of had no gear and sort of no idea at that stage.
So you're this 17-year-old kid that rocks up at the World Championships, wins a few games playing tennis shoes.
Yeah, pretty much.
I love that.
Classic Wilson racket that like that. I was a proper tennis player playing badminton, like awful technique. Had a Rafael Nadal forehand defense, stuff like that. It was I did a lot of work doing.
So at that point, like you just said, you had a lot of work doing. Did you, like after you played that tournament, especially, like if you can try and think looking back, did you feel like, right, this could be the start of something that I really want to pursue now? Or was it like that was a bit of a like you sort of look back at that and think that was a turning point, or you look back and think, all right, this is really hard now, or like I need to work better? You know what I mean?
A bit of both. It was sort of like a turning point because it really made me feel that I could compete at an international level, because I got through my group in men's doubles and I lost in the last 32, and then I got through to the last 16 in the men's singles. But that's not like, for my first international tournament, being in the top 16 in the world, I felt like, okay, yeah, I can really do that. So that sort of really spurred me on, and that's when I sort of stopped playing tennis and stuff. And I've really focused on the badminton. Did the futures with Pete Bush, and then with Steve Holbert as well, did sessions. And obviously I knew Bobby at this stage, and we were getting quite good friends. So we were playing like every single evening that we weren't like at a group session. We were training on our own, booking out courts, all over sort of Bristol and Bath, wherever we could find a court. You could usually find us playing like singles, full court singles, half court singles, Danish and all that. So I really sort of committed to it and thought, but at that stage I didn't think it would even get to sort of where I am now, because it was still it was all self-funded. We had no sort of funding help. I had some help through individual sponsors, through Wiltshire Council. I've got like £1,000 here and there, but I was still spending like £10,000 a year easily just for all the travel, competition, tournaments, all that. So it was a really sort of big commitment from me and my family and stuff to sort of keep me going to that sort of like get me to those competitions.
So so you said at this time you were 17. At that point you were looking like, you know, it's a sort of a big stage in everyone's life. Obviously you're sort of thinking about uni and other stages in your life. Did you went to uni at 18 or 19? Is that right?
I went to uni at 18, straight out of sixth form. I went into uni. I went to the University of Bristol, and that was largely my uni choice was very sort of heavily influenced by my badminton, because I wanted to stay close to Bath and Bristol, because I thought I need to keep training because I want to get to the Paralympics. And at that stage, badminton wasn't even in the Paralympics yet, because it's the first time it's going in Tokyo. And so I just sort of like, but I still was really keen to get, as even Paralympics or not, I wanted to get to like a stage where I could be like European champion, world champion. So I sort of really sort of still committed to it. And then I always remember it was 2016, October 2016, we got just a notice through the badminton was going into the Paralympics in Tokyo. I sort of just remember exactly what I was in a law lecture. I think it was contract law. I just saw this note and I just went like white and I just couldn't speak. And so my focus was just gone for that. So I just walked out of the lecture. I was just like so sort of struck that like now it's sort of every sort of, that was sort of a big step for it becoming. That
moment must have been so rewarding in a sense, maybe, that you sort of like, maybe all this work you're putting in currently could like, well, it is going towards something really big.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And it wasn't just me. I was more happy as well for the sport, because we tried to get into Rio and it failed and stuff. And they'd worked so hard to sort of grow the sport and get it better that it was sort of a big moment for that, because we're such a close-knit community in badminton that to be able to go onto the world stage was a big moment. And yeah, for me personally, that was sort of like my ultimate sort of dream that I thought was just a pipe dream and never happened. And now then it was starting to get into touching distance as well. And at that stage I was European champion and I got into the top 5 in the world. So at that stage it was sort of a real big possibility that I could get to that.
So just before we get into your international career, I just want to quickly touch on Uni of Bristol and Avon first. So sort of two questions really, they both sort of lead into each other. How has maybe not in terms of technical skills, but certainly in terms of a group thing, Avon and the Uni of Bristol badminton clubs and county maybe helped you progress in terms of that, you know, in terms of being in a squad like that, in terms of Bristol and Avon?
Yeah, massively. Both of them have such a big impact on my career, and I wouldn't be where I am today without them, because yes, at the moment I'm in a full-time training centre, and they've up here in Sheffield, and I've progressed so much without it here, but I wouldn't have got to be here if it wasn't for having like sparring partners and coaches. Like Paul Tomlinson was a massive influence on me technically and as a player, as he is for so many Avon, particularly the juniors coming up, and we had a lot of sort of individual sessions and stuff like that. And then just anyone who's gone when we had the the squad session for Avon Kingsdown on Thursday. And people were willing to play half court singles with me. That's sort of a mass thing, because I think everyone sort of who plays half court singles appreciates that not many people like it. It's not sort of, when you're a badminton player, it's sort of like, I think, just from a few of the matches we've had, I've sort of understood that it's not your sort of game. But yeah, for many people, it's an annoying thing that you have to do in the warm-up, and then you get on to the proper badminton, such as doubles. But people were just really sort of friendly and sort of accepting that, and giving me sparring games and stuff like that. And the best thing about Avon is that we came and we really felt sort of included, and people were really actually interested in what we're doing. There was a genuine sort of feeling of support there, and when we're at tournaments, there was always sort of good luck messages coming in. So it was this really sort of community feeling that is just so well associated with Avon, that we really felt this support, and it was a massive part of my development in getting to where I am now.
I was about to say, does that community feeling that Avon definitely has, like, does that really drive a person on in terms of wanting to do more and wanting to proceed to next levels?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Like, just seeing those messages when I'm at a tournament, like going into a final stuff, it really does sort of spur you on. And because it makes you feel that you are a part of something, just having that support, and it does really sort of give you motivation that you want to go out and do really well, just not just for yourself, but for all the people who've sort of helped you get to where you are. So yeah, it's a massive sort of like rock and anchor. Whenever I'm at a tournament, like having those sort of messages come in is fantastic.
Awesome. So sort of moving into the international career, I was interested. Can you remember the feeling or like the event of winning your first international championship? Is that something that sticks heavily in your mind? And if you could talk us through it.
Yeah. So the first international I won was the English International in 2014. So that was only my second or third one. Yeah. So I was only 18.
Does that early?
Yeah, and then it was sort of just a massive shock to. I remember just being in sort of disbelief. I didn't really couldn't believe that I'd won an international tournament, and to have it in England as well, it was just sort of this amazing feeling, because I'd really started to commit at that point to badminton. I'd been training really hard for a year, did well in my first tournament in Dortmund in late 2013, and to get that feeling, it was just unbelievable. And then moving on later that year, the biggest tournament for me today was winning my first European Championships.
Yeah,
that was sort of when I was, again, sort of 18, just started uni and stuff like that. It's just like an unbelievable feeling to have that sort of like title on your mantle. You are sort of European champion. It's sort of just like bewildering, because from where I started and from how sort of bad I was at badminton when I first started, to get to that sort of stage where I was like winning international titles and European championships, it was just sort of surreal. You see it on TV and all these amazing athletes like winning those sort of titles, and to sort of be among that list was a really, really special feeling.
As a county player, and as obviously lots of people will watch this, so we play lots of local tournaments and stuff. But obviously for you, it's so different. You're taking planes, traveling across the world to different tournaments. How is that for you, and how do you adapt and stay sort of focused for such a long time, being overseas and different time zones and stuff? For you, how do you personally cope with that?
It's definitely it's a hard one. It definitely takes practice. Like it's something that you have to do over and over. And I've made a biggest thing for me, it was a lot of sort of trial and error, like what works and stuff. I remember when I first started traveling and going abroad and stuff, like the biggest thing for me was like things like food. Like it's obviously very different when you go to different countries, and I used to never sort of eat. I was sort of like quite a picky eater, so going sort of times I'd go and I'd just be like having a sandwich a day and stuff like that to sort of get me through, and I'd be like passing out from exhaustion and stuff like that. So it was it's very hard. You have to sort of go out early, make sure that you acclimatise properly and stuff like that. Then it's also big. The best thing about it is just like enjoying it as well, like sort of embracing that culture, all the different countries I've been to, going out doing tourism stuff alongside the tournament. It's just like sort of amazing to sort of soak up, because I'm obviously in a very privileged position that I get to go around the world playing badminton. So yeah, so it's definitely, you have to enjoy it as much, sort of getting yourself ready for the tournament. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, I had a look on your badminton England page, and I saw well, I knew this, but I was just sort of leading into the question that you when you got to number one in the world, obviously that must have been an unbelievable achievement. Could you sort of talk me through, like, how you found it out, or when you knew that you were going to get to number one, and the feeling that came with that, obviously?
Yeah, it was sort of a surprise for me. I didn't realise I was going to number one in the world, and it was just one of my friends from Germany, another badminton player, just messaged me and said congratulations. I was just like, for what? And then he sent me a screenshot of the world rankings, and it was just sort of like, wow, I just didn't sort of expect it at all. It's sort of just like
an amazing surprise.
Yeah, it was just like, just amazing that I never thought that I'd be ranked the best player in the world. That was always something.
When you saw that, was there a bit of sort of self-reflection and just a sense of pride in where you've come to?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it was sort of that thing of where I sort of started low in the world, and you have to sort of work your way up, going to a tournament, playing the best players in the world, and sort of beating them. So to sort of think back, and from just like, it was an amazing sort of reflection from where I'd started to just see sort of my improvements throughout my career to that date, and to have that number one world ranking was just amazing. Yeah.
Obviously, you've had like the international tournaments, you probably couldn't count them, but is there, and obviously you talked about the European Championships, maybe that might be it, but is there one tournament that sticks out in your mind as just, that was for me, that stands out in terms of the place, or even just for how you played?
I think definitely it's hands down the World Championships in Stoke Mandeville in 2015 in England. So it was a home World Championships, and I always remember because I had probably the hardest day of my life in badminton terms, maybe ever, because I was playing all three events, and I got through in all of them, so I was doing really well. And then it came to the Saturday, and I had 9 matches in one day, and I was first on at 9 o'clock in the morning and last on at 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
And I think out of those 9 matches, 6 of them went to 3 sets, 4 of those being half-court singles. So it was just sort of very sort of physical and stuff like that. And it was just such a highly emotional day, because I was going for medals in the World Championships. And it always sticks out in my memory. It's the most memorable match came from that tournament of my life, was the men's doubles quarterfinals. I was playing with Bobby Griffin, and we were playing against Anthony Forster. He's obviously a part of the Avon, and a guy called Alan Oliver from Scotland. That was sort of just the most surreal match. We were both pairs really, really wanted to win. It was for a World Championship medal, and me and Bobby going into the match were favourites. We'd won the last few matches against Alan and Anthony. And we thought, okay, we should win this. We should become world medalists. And they just played the best match of badminton I've ever seen either of them play. They were just unbeatable. It was one of the matches we almost didn't deserve to win. It was a really scrapey match, and we won 21-19 in the third. And that was sort of a massive moment, because that was the biggest sort of medal we'd won in men's doubles today. We hadn't won many tournaments, and just get a World Championship medal, like, we were crying afterwards. It was just such high emotion and stuff like that, and it was just like, just sort of a magical moment.
I think I could hear Anthony's shouts from that match back in 2015. I do remember hearing some shouts, like, definitely.
Oh yeah. To be fair, I think if he's in Japan and you're in Bristol, I think you can hear Anthony shout when he's winning. You
can always tell if he's winning or losing a point.
He's true, but you definitely when Anthony's playing badminton, you know about it, because you can hear it no matter where you are.
You mentioned obviously your partnership with Bobby, and everyone knows that, how much you two have succeeded together. Like, how is the partner, like, looking back and obviously forwards, how is the partnership with him and the friendship that you've built together?
We've become very close, like, through badminton. We've sort of, like, it was sort of both our shared dream that we wanted to go to the Paralympics and do as well as we possibly can. And we were training, like I said earlier, we were training sort of every day. Like, you'd always find us at a badminton or just training, trying to get better and stuff like that. And looking back, we had a very successful partnership, winning titles. I think we medalled in everyone but one of the tournaments we played at an international level. So we
Not
were
a bad record then. Not a bad record.
So quite good. Sort of finished our partnership in 2017 as the number one, or 2018 as one of the best pairs in the world.
Yeah,
we were number one for a while. So yeah, it was a really sort of special sort of partnership, and we sort of continued that through. It was very disappointing in 2017 in September when we found out the categories. So we found out Paralympics was going into the games in 2016, and then a year later we found out about the categories going in. And obviously, I remember well, I was in Japan. We were all flying out to Japan for an international, and I was there. I remember I was playing a card game with some Scottish players, and it just came through my phone that singles was in, and I looked down and doubles wasn't. And that was sort of heartbreaking.
Seeing Bobby's Facebook post about it, I think I was just I felt so gutted for him.
Yeah, because we've built such a good partnership, and we'd worked so hard. He'd worked so hard at this stage. He'd moved up to Sheffield to train for time to get to the Paralympics, and then that sort of devastating news sort of came out that we weren't going to have that opportunity. And then it was hard. So it was sort of like mixed emotions for me, because I was still fortunate enough that I have the opportunity to go in singles, but it would have been very nice to be able to go with Bobby. But then credit where it's due to Bobby, he didn't sort of like give up or anything. He's still up here in Sheffield working with us every day and sort of helping us all sort of go to the Paralympics and sort of achieve our dreams. And he's a massive part of the squad. He's a very big core and a big sort of mentor and a good support for everyone as we go forward to the Paralympics. So, and hopefully we'll return to a doubles court at some point in the future. I think we were planning a comeback last year at the European Championships, which would have been epic. But
that would have been epic.
COVID stopped that from happening, but I'm sure we'll be on a court again at some point in the future.
Lovely to hear, mate. Well, that brings me on to my next question quite nicely with COVID. Obviously, like, you know, you get the nod in 2016 that it's going to be happening in 2020, and then you know you get the nod that you're definitely going to be playing, but you know, singles is definitely going to be in and stuff. And I've seen your Insta post, like, you know, 2 years to this, 1 year to this, and then as it draws closer, obviously, COVID hits. I was just wondering if you could sort of, you know, go through your. I mean, obviously, it might be quite a tough subject to talk about, but sort of your emotions as, you know, COVID was developing and you thought that 2020 was obviously got cancelled. Like, talk me through that sort of stage.
Yeah, so it was obviously sort of gutting. Obviously, it was sort of we've had such a long journey to get to the Paralympics, and then it's sort of delayed. Oh yeah, so that was sort of heartbreaking. But sort of at the time when it was announced, I was actually relieved that it was announced at that stage, because the pandemic was getting worse and worse, and people's health is obviously way more important, because at the end of the day, badminton, it's a sport. It's a very important sport for so many people, including me, but it is just a sport, and there's sort of nothing more important than your health. So it was sort of the right decision. Athletes weren't able to train, so there was a higher chance that people would be getting injured if they had to go in and try and rush to get ready for the tournament. I think we had about 16 weeks in total where we weren't able to get into our training centre up here in Sheffield, so we were just training at home. So we couldn't do anything. So by the time we got back, we would have only had 6 weeks to prepare for the Paralympics. And when we're going for such a big event, we want to be out at our absolute best. We want, not just us, but we want the rest of the world to be able at their best as well, because you want to win a Paralympic medal, but you want to beat your competition when they're at their strongest. And then that just wouldn't have been possible this last year. So I was sort of like quite quick to accept that while it was very disappointing, it was definitely the right decision at that time. It was more important to make sure everyone's safe, and then we can sort of go forward into this year and go to the games.
And now it's like, so you said you've been back since June, right? Is that right? Yeah. So you've been back since June, and you're training every day. Do you think, you know, looking back, like you said it yourself, it's the right thing, but do you think currently you're in the best possible position you can be leading up to the summer?
Yeah, definitely. I think we definitely didn't waste any time during the lockdown, even when we were at home, we were doing workouts 2 or 3 times a day at home. So we came out of back into the national centre in the best possible shape I think we could be. And everyone's training really, really well at the moment. We've had at the back end of last year, we had sort of a mock tournament that was just sort of made up by our coaches to sort of give us sort of something to aim for, because that's obviously the hardest part about long periods of when you're just training. It's like, okay, what are you aiming for? What are your goals? So to have sort of that as sort of a goal was really good for us, and we were all sort of aiming towards that. And now coming out into this year, everyone started the year in great condition, and everyone's getting better. And we've got our last qualifying tournament for the Paralympics. It was announced last week. It's the middle of May in Spain. So then now we've sort of got that to sort of focus on. But I really do think that everyone's improved over the last year, despite everything. Everyone's come out a stronger athlete. So yeah, I'm feeling very optimistic about this year from myself and my teammates.
Oh, that's lovely to hear, mate. And sort of going into the Paralympics, like, are you the type of player that likes to set certain goals for himself, or is it more the sort of mindset of, I'm going to turn up, I'm going to give it everything, and if it doesn't materialize, so what? But obviously it might not.
Yeah, I'm very much like, I don't particularly like going into like a tournament saying I want to get to this stage or I want to win it, because I think if I start thinking like that, it puts unnecessary pressure on myself to do that. I just always think, I go into a match and I just think, I just want to put the best version of myself onto that court, play my best game, because the thing about being an athlete, you can't control the uncontrollables. It's like when you're in a match, you can't control things like the umpire, the conditions, everything that. So you've just got to sort of control what you can. So for me, it's just making sure that when I go on there, I do everything I can to put the best version of myself onto that court. And then if I do that, there's often a high chance that I can win the match. And then if I do lose that, I can reflect and think, okay, he was just better than me on that day. I did everything I could. I prepared as best as I could, put everything down, and then if I lose, it's just one of those days where the other guy was better than me.
And so, I mean, looking past the Paralympics, I'm sure, like, not that we want to do that, but just for, I'm pretty sure I'll know the answer, but after the Paralympics is finished, obviously you've been working towards that for so long. Once that is finished, is there, like, do you feel yourself that you're just as motivated to keep on pushing on, playing tournaments and, pushing for the next games, etc., like a longer term vision?
Yeah, definitely. I think straight after the games, we've got a nice short term goal. We're going back to Tokyo a month later for our World Championship. So yeah, we're not staying out of Tokyo for that long, which is quite nice. We'll go straight into a World Championship. So we'll have quite a very hectic sort of schedule around September and October time. So that gives me some good short-term goals. And then I definitely feel I'll feel even more motivated after the Paralympics, win or lose, no matter how I do, just because I'll be sort of coming off the experience of my first time at a Paralympics and sort of that atmosphere and stuff, and just talking to other athletes who have already been to Olympic and Paralympic games. They just say that there's nothing like it, even like World Championships in your individual sport. So I know that coming off that, I'll be really sort of highly motivated. And because of COVID, we'll have less time to sort of rest and sort of recuperate. We'll only have, normally you come off a cycle and you have 2 years where there's no qualification or everything. You're just looking to get better and build ranking points for the next qualifying for Paris, which is in 2024, in 2023. You have the qualifying. So we'll just be sort of straight back in there, getting better as best we can next year, so that when we go back into qualifying, we're in the best shape possible to get to Paris.
Mate, it sounds like you've got it all planned out. I love it. So just finally, I just want to ask you, for maybe some younger badminton players, or just any badminton player with disability looking to get into the sport, what would be, from seeing where you are now, what would be your advice to them?
Yeah, my sort of advice to anyone getting involved in badminton, no matter what level you want to go at, is just make sure that you enjoy it. Like, that's the most important thing, because you can look at other sort of values and things you need to be a successful badminton player, like things like hard work, giving 110% effort. And yes, you do need that, but if you enjoy it, that hard work will just come with it. You won't have to feel like, oh, you have to force yourself to work hard. If you enjoy something, you'll just do it. Everyone knows that in training and stuff, there are boring elements. Like not every exercise is exciting. Like when we're doing like technical sessions and you're just hitting 1,000 net shots, just not moving it, it's not the most exciting. So it's always very important that when you're training, make sure you have some fun elements in there, play some fun games like 3v3 or box or Danish, something like that, just to sort of keep it interesting. So that's always the number one thing that I say to people is make sure that whatever you do, whether it's badminton or whatever, just make sure that you enjoy it, because then you'll really commit to it and then you'll just naturally get better. And then especially for younger badminton players, it's sort of a controversial one maybe, but don't be afraid to do other sports as well. Because we know, obviously, we want badminton is the number one sport in the world. We all know that, and that's the point. Do that, but also don't be afraid to go out and do other sports, because I'm sure you did. I played like rugby, football, cricket, tennis. Like I played a lot, because if you play other sports, you'll learn to train your body in different ways. You'll get different skills that are transferable into badminton, and it will just make your badminton game that much better. So so don't be afraid to do other things to improve your badminton as well.
Just on the enjoyment aspect, just quickly bringing it back to Avon, did Avon help you personally enjoy badminton that bit more, and just like?
Yeah, oh definitely, yeah, because that sort of social element was sort of a massive, particularly when I first went, and you just go and there'd be games like every day, you just meet different people and stuff like that. Would be like just fun things going on, and you had that sense of community that it wasn't just fun on court playing badminton, but you had good off court banter as well, so you just really got to know a lot of people. Everyone was really friendly, so that really did sort of like I always looked forward to going to that Thursday night session, because I knew that it was just going to be a really, really good time with a lot of really nice people.
Oh mate, it's got a tear in my eye almost. Got a tear in my eye. I think, mate, that concludes. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to talk. I'm sure we'll enjoy having a listen. That has been the second episode of My Avon Story. We have an episode coming out with Jess Hopton, which I'm recording on Wednesday. So that's going to be, class. But for now, everyone that is watching, thank you very much, and thank you, Dan, as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.